Married, slept with another man, and regretted it immediately. Husband found out. I am not sure if he wants to leave me or not, but I am willing to do anything to fix it. Need advice. I need some advice on how to keep my family together. I have made some mistakes, and the receipt is going to break my family, if it hasn't already. My husband and I have been married for 12 years, together for almost 16. We are both 34 years old. We have 2 beautiful children, a 10-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter. My husband is a wonderful man, a very good provider, although we both work, a wonderful father. My parents love husband more than they love my brother, or myself, for that matter. All my female friends gush over how lucky I am to have locked him down, yet, with all the above, I had an affair. I've met this other man at work. He works in the same building as myself, a different office, different floor. He was taller than my husband, spends more time in the gym than my husband, he has no family of his own, perfect chiseled chin, handsome like a model, etc. Other man started giving attention to me, and slowly I gave in. I decided that Mr. Mom at home was not enough for me. I convinced myself that my husband is not giving me enough attention. After 2 months of courting, other man takes me to a hotel room after work, and we sleep together. It was the worst experience of my life. It was all exciting until we started having sex, and it all felt wrong. There was an immense amount of guilt and shame that took control of me. I realized it was not what I wanted, that I am making a huge mistake. I went home. At home, my husband was entertaining the kids. They were in front of the TV, and husband was doing theatrics for the kids, pretending to have an imaginary sword fight with an enemy, and the kids were all laughter and giggles. He was telling them a story or something. I stood there and watched them for a few minutes, then went and took a shower, and no amount of water could wash the shame I felt. So I started doing what I could to repent. I had no intention of confessing to my husband, but decided I will become the best version of myself for him. So we started having sex every day. If not possible, I made sure he would get a BJ. Started cooking more at home, started having date nights again, because my parents were more than happy to babysit at the end of a simple phone call. I can say that our relationship was better than ever. 6 weeks later, other man approached me at work, and told me he wants to repeat our session. I told him no, that it was a mistake, and to leave me alone. He insisted, and I told him I love my husband and that other man is not half the man my husband is. Later that day, I go back home, kiss my husband hello, have small talk with him, and go take a shower before we go out for a movie. I come out of the shower, and I could just tell something was wrong. Husband was looking at his phone, and he was sobbing. I asked him what was wrong, and he hands me his phone. Other man sent him a few messages, detailing how we spent together, how we planned it, screenshots of messages, the receipt from the hotel, some pictures, etc. Husband asked me if it was true, and I was truthful about everything. He asked me if I had ever intended of confessing, and I told him I would have taken this to the grave with me. I tried to explain it was all a mistake, that I regret it more than anything. That I will do anything to repent, and pleaded with him not to leave. Well, he left for 2 days, did not answer my calls, did not answer my texts. I tried to get a hold of him at his work, but was told he took a few days off. Then he came home, spent some time with the kids, and started packing a bag for himself. Told me we are done. That if I think I can do anything I want and suffer no consequences, he can do whatever he wants, and damn the consequences. He then told me how much he sacrificed for us and our relationship and our marriage. He never finished school, because our son came along, and we needed money more than he needed to finish school. He abandoned friends because I was not comfortable with them. He put me ahead of his own needs and desires. That he spends more time with the kids than I do, and while he loves the kids to death, he never has time for himself. I however go out with friends after work. And with all this, with everything he does for me, I have the gall to cheat on him. He loved me unconditionally through all my faults and issues, and I entertained an affair. He doesn't see how he can spend his life with someone who has no respect for him, that he should have known that all the attention I've given him lately was just guilt and it was not genuine. That it is time he concentrates on himself for once. And he moved out. We have individual finances. He earns almost 3 times my pay. We have a joint account where we both deposit money for bills, groceries, etc. We have another account where we deposit for the kids. And another account where we deposit for emergencies, savings, etc. He received his salary last week, and promptly deposited his usual amounts to our joint accounts. So that was a relief. It lets me think he is not completely checked out of this mess I created. We are supposed to meet tomorrow and discuss where we are and what the future will be. I want to absolutely make it clear to him I have made a horrible mistake, and I will do anything he wants of me. I will take more responsibilities around the house, cut down from my time with friends, and focus more on the kids. I want him to go back and finish school if he wants that. I am so desperate I am willing to allow him to go and sleep with other women if that's what he wants. I just am not sure how to talk with him without sounding manipulating. He never mentioned a divorce through all this, and hasn't told anyone as far as I know. I have told my mother, asking for advice, and she was very disappointed in me. Asked her to not tell anyone else, and to my knowledge she has not. Him not bringing divorce into the mix gives me some hope, but I am scared of what tomorrow will mean, and what he might tell me. Maybe tomorrow he asks me for a divorce. I just need some advice. My affair was a wake-up call. I don't want to lose the best thing in my life. Any advice will be appreciated. Thank you. Update. Husband is aware of everything I will be writing below. As I mentioned last time, husband called me and asked me to leave the kids with my parents. Then asked me to meet him a few hours later. We were to meet at a nice little restaurant we used to frequent when we were younger, where he took me to our first date. Initially I thought of it as a positive, that he wants to meet me somewhere familiar, where we have history. But as the hours went by, I was sure this is just poetic justice. That the place where we had our first date will be the place where he ends it all out. Like a cycle, it ends where it started. I suppose the mind can mess with you like that, turn a positive into a negative at a snap. Even though I've seen him almost daily the past 6 weeks, he was avoiding me, and I never had a proper look at him. He lost weight, got a new haircut, was dressed very nice, like it was for an occasion. Dumping my sorry ass and getting along with his life would have been it, I suppose. I wanted to hug him, but he cut me short. I will never forget the words he spoke to me. Have a seat. Let me speak. I want my wife back. Something happened to her, and I don't know where she is. You know my wife better than I do, so I want to ask you if you have any idea what has happened to her. Can you tell me why she found it so easy to betray both myself and our children? I started crying, and he told me he didn't invite me there to make me cry. He told me he has a few things to tell me, and that they will be painful things to hear, and to let him know if I am strong enough to listen to him, or if I want some space first. I nodded no, and he started. He told me that the first 2 weeks after he found out, he wanted nothing but to hurt me. He loathed having to come and pick up the kids for practice, because I would be there. He wanted to go to my work and let everyone know I am a whore. He wanted to call my parents and siblings and let them know. To tell his parents and brother. To tell everyone we know. He wanted to divorce me, taking the kids away from me. His mind was all over the place. But all these feelings were forced. He was hurt. He still is hurt. But had plenty of time to think. He knows what he wants to do, but before he tells me, he wants me to answer a question. Why? And I answered the most sincerely I could. Because I could. I didn't need to. I didn't have to. But I could. He nodded, then asked me if I regret it. I said I do. He said he believes me. He then asked me if I am sorry for being exposed. I told him no. My actions have consequences, and I will live with them. But that I hope that whatever shape those consequences will take, losing him will not be it. He nodded. He asked me if I ever thought about the kids, and how their lives might change because of my actions. Some people recommended I be brutally honest when answering his questions. People who went through my situation. So I told my husband that when I was in bed with the other man, I immediately felt guilt, and the kids were my first thought, and what a big mistake I am making. But that before it was all about myself, no kids, no husband, no family, just myself. He asked me if we used a condom, and I told him we did, but other man never finished, because my guilt was too much, and left a few minutes after we started. He nodded, but he was swallowing hard, and it was clear he had a hard time asking me about this. He asked me if I would have it within me to forgive him if the roles were reversed. And I told him that I struggled with this same question, and while being in this situation, I want to immediately say yes, of course I would forgive you. The truth is I don't think I could forgive him. He nodded again. I told him I realize how selfish I am to ask him to come back, but I am willing to fight for him, and do anything he asks of me. He asked me if I want him back at home. I said yes. Then he asked me if I understand what I am asking him to do. I am asking him to come back home, eat his pride, no, kill his pride. Kill any traces of ego he might still have. Asked me if I can imagine what this whole situation is doing to his self-worth and esteem. It was painful to listen to him. I felt sick with myself, and to be honest, I felt like we're not husband and wife anymore. I felt this meeting was more for closure than anything, and I started to get used with the idea. Many people in the previous thread said as much, that he will not want anything to do with me, and this is more of a this is how we split meeting. The fact that he next told me he spoke with a lawyer cemented this idea. He told me he had a few appointments with a lawyer. Papers were made. Silence, none of us spoke for a few minutes. My mind started going to the kids, trying to figure out how to plead with husband to not go for full custody, how to explain to my parents and his parents my actions, and so on. He then told me that the kids should remain with my parents until they start school, or maybe longer after that. My parents live close to their school, so it would be easy for the kids. I asked him why, and he said if we are to work on ourselves, we need some time alone. That we should both take a few days off, and leave the city. I asked him if this means he will move back in. He said yes. I asked him if this means he is giving me a second chance. He said yes. But he told me this is the hardest thing he has ever had to do. That a week ago, he was ready to serve me with divorce papers. He told me he doesn't hate me. He had time to think, to calm down, and to think some more. I betrayed his trust. He told me it would have been better if I told him in the morning I am going to fuck some other man, and I'll be back home for dinner. At least that wouldn't have been behind his back. He is not sure how he can trust me again. But he will try. So I enumerated some things from the previous thread, open phone policy, and GPS tracking. He looked at me and told me he is not the police or a detective. That there is no way for him to rebuild his trust in me if he has to always check up on me, so I asked me if he wants me to leave my job. He told me that would be a mistake. We don't need the money my salary brings in, but it is not for him to demand me to leave my job. He knows I love my work, and that would be selfish of him. He also told me, besides, other man will no longer be an issue. I asked him what that means, but he said nothing, and changed the subject. I asked him to go to marriage counseling. He doesn't want to. He told me whatever issues he will have to work through, he will do so himself, and doesn't need someone else to tell him what to do. However, if I want to go to individual counseling, he is fine with that. He just doesn't see it working for himself. So we will start clean. He will not hold it over me, but that doesn't mean it is forgotten. We have a lot of rebuilding ahead, and while there will be no, at least I haven't fucked another woman in our future talks, he will not be shy about the matter. He doesn't want us to tell anyone. For me, not for himself. If we start telling people, they might alienate me from their social groups, and he doesn't want the mother of his children to suffer. By proxy, the children will suffer. If I am shunned by the other mothers and friends, the kids will miss on play dates and other group activities, and he doesn't want that. He made it clear he is not keeping this a secret for my benefit. But he hopes I understand I should suffer. At the least, I should be ashamed. Which I am. We chatted some more, but the above were the most important points. Later that night, he was home. He settled in the guest room. We talked some more. It felt weird without kids around, but he was there, and it was nice. We sat on the couch, and I told him I want to tell our parents about the affair. He said he doesn't think it is a good idea. While my parents may be more lenient because I am their daughter, his parents will have no reason to handle the situation with gloves. But I insisted, and I told him that my actions should have some consequences, and that so far it feels like he is allowing me to get away scot-free. So he agreed we could tell our parents. What happened next is a little embarrassing to write about. He asked me if I really feel like I should be punished for my actions. I told him that yes, there should be some punishment. He said alright then, and then he asked me to take off my pants. Then he asked me to bend over his knees. And he spanked my ass red. It was the most submissive I have ever been to anyone in my adult life. When he felt it was enough, he dropped my panties, and fucked me from behind, holding my hands behind my back. It was the most intense sexual experience the two of us had, and the most satisfying for me. I surrendered completely to him, and it was the best experience of my sexual life. He then carried me in his arms to my bed, because I was exhausted and I would not have made it there myself. He slept in the guest room. We both went to work the next day, Monday. When we got back home, we left to visit the kids and spend time with them. When we came back home, we talked and talked and talked. I half expected him to spank me again, but nothing happened. We decided once a week we will have a status checkup, discussing what we like or hated about each other the week previous. I decided I will go to individual therapy. He decided he wants a room for himself, a man cave, Wednesday we had both our parents together, and I came clean to them. My father took it the hardest, and he was very upset when he figured out my mom already knew. Husband's parents were not pleased to say the least. But they said they trust my husband's judgment. Husband was adamant they not speak a word of this to anyone. Told them we wanted them to know because we respect them, but that nobody else should find out, and this is his decision. Husband's parents dropped a bomb on us too, they too reconciliated. My mother-in-law had several affairs, and they worked through it. This was before my husband was born, but after his brother was born. Husband joked and asked if he is a baby will fix this child. We both took a week off from work next week. We'll leave to a cabin in the mountains, where we can have peace and quiet, and can hike and be just the two of us. We haven't had a fight yet, and it's weird because I've read fights will be frequent after an affair, even during reconciliation. He hasn't asked me anything more about the affair aside for the details from our date last Sunday. We have some books we will take with us to read about affairs and rebuilding after them. That is all I have to say about it. I apologize for the length, but I felt the need to talk with someone before I start my therapy once we return. Thank you to those that gave me advice. I cheated on my husband over a year ago, and he has been punishing me since. Can I still save the marriage? I have been with my husband for almost 7 years in total. We got married within a year of meeting and have 2 children together. He is an amazing man and an amazing person, handsome, well-educated, good-paying job, and has never cheated or disrespected me in any way before all of this happened. My close friends and family always remind of how lucky I have been in life to meet him and what an amazing guy he is. I used to look at us like soulmates. About a year ago, I ended up going out with a group of friends for a birthday party, in which I ended up very drunk and sleeping with a man who had been flirting with me the entire night. It was the first time I felt so good in many years, and I can't explain why, but I ended up going home with him. Within minutes of realizing what mistake I had done, I ordered a taxi home and confessed to my husband, crying, feeling incredible regret and literally hating myself for it. He initially stayed quiet and calm, but let me know he wanted a divorce, but after begging and begging, we ended up going to counseling. When at the counseling sessions, he never seems to be coherent and just sits and scrolls on his mobile. Whenever he gets a question about his feeling or what he can do to improve, he says something along the lines of divorcing a whore maybe, or very negative answers directed towards me. Most of the time he does not even seem to care and just stays quiet even being asked questions, and when we are trying to engage him into the conversation. I realize the mistake I have done, and I have spent the past year doing everything I can to save the marriage. It has gotten to the point where I even agree to do sexual acts, which I despise for him, such as anal sex. I have been cleaning the house, cooking, and all chores in the house by myself, with no help on his side. Whatever he asks for, you name it, I have done it all. He has these outbursts in which he calls me horribly names, sometimes the children can hear it from their bedrooms, and moments in which he just completely ignores me, walks through the house as if I don't exist. He always treats the children with love and never badmouths me to them and try to keep them away from our arguments. Sometimes if I do not perform certain things, no matter the time, such as anal sex or other things, he starts telling me he will divorce me and leave me, or he begins mentioning my infidelity, telling me this is all my fault. He says he did a mistake marrying me and calls me a whore or other words. I also know he has been speaking to women, and when I confront him about it, he literally starts mentioning my infidelity. I have no proof of whether he has met anyone behind my back, but I just want everything to turn back into the ways they were. One time when I brought up a message I had seen from another woman on his phone, he grabbed my hand and took me to the main hall and pointed to the door and told me the exit is right there if I want to leave and that he doesn't give a shit of what I think or feel. I feel as if I have lost the caring, loving husband I once had and turned him into this monster. I love him to death and can't imagine myself with anyone else. I regret my mistake every single day and just want my family back. I don't know if I can save this marriage, but I am willing to do whatever it takes. I don't know what I am asking for, maybe I just need to vent out, but I just wish I could go back in time and reverse all of this. Update. I confronted my husband today. As many people have stated, I have had a feeling he doesn't want to try anymore and that he just wants to move on. Initially, I walked up to him and wanted to explain the entire situation about how I understand his pain and how I understand that he no longer wants to work on the marriage and move on. So I told him if this is what he truly wants, I will accept it and let him move on with his life, but that I truly love him and forever will. He just stood silent and looked at me, came up and hugged me, and started to cry. I started to cry as well. This was the first time I felt genuine loving hug and emotion from him in a long time. After what felt like a few minutes of crying and hugging, he finally let go and asked me to come sit down with him. He started letting me know that he still loves me with all his heart and that he loves our children, but he has a hard time forgetting and moving on from what happened. He said that he has these angry, raging moments not only because of the hatred of what I had done, but also because he has these images in his head of what I had done. He can't forget about them. He told me he had plenty of women flirting with him over the years, and that he had plenty of chances to stray away from loyalty, but that I and the kids always meant more for him than a few moments of pleasure, and that he never could have done what I did to him, that he loved me too much to hurt me. I broke down even more when I heard him saying this. He then kept on telling me how something is broken within him that cannot be fixed. He said he had been chatting with other women these months, but never actually slept or done anything physical with them because he did not feel it was the right thing to do. Hearing me tell him that he can move on was the first time he felt I finally understood how he is feeling inside and how broken he is. He told me that he does not know what the future holds for us, but that he for the moment being wants to be single, explore his own life, and maybe we will end up together in the future, but for the time being he needs to work on himself away from me. I told him I would agree to sign the divorce papers if he wanted a divorce, and that I did not want anything from him. What he brought into the marriage is his, and I don't want to take that away from him. He earns much more money than me, but I still don't want him to have to use that money on me, so I don't want child support as well. Hearing all of this made him cry, and he said he hopes he can forgive me one day, but that time apart will do us both good and let us both reflect on our lives. He said that he will get a lawyer and bring the divorce papers in a week or so. I will not meet anyone else after the divorce, and I don't want to either. I truly hope he comes back to me one day so we can have our old family back. I wish I could take back everything. I really have huge feelings of remorse and just lost the one person that truly is my soulmate. I guess I am getting divorced.
This is the end of today's stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon.